by implementing a rule for every car produced in Canada, the same manufacturer would get to sell a car in Canada duty-free.
Carney has done it again. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Carney violating the Conflicts of Interest Act once again over in Norway. We got Pierre coming out with a real plan to help save the auto industry in Canada. Got a bunch of other stuff here. Let's jump into this. Starting this off, we got average wait times for specialists in surgeries in Canada. What do we see? Neurosurgery 49.9 weeks, orthopedic surgery 48.6 weeks, and the list just goes on here: 43, 41, 40, 31 weeks for general surgery. Is this what our free healthcare is? As Table Salt points out, medically assisted perishing 0 days. People can actually get this quite quickly. It's disgusting. Our free healthcare is not free, and really people are paying the price for this and having to wait this long for these surgeries. Often people not making it in time for their life-saving surgeries. Moving ahead, we've got Mackenzie Gray pushing this out. So the Carney came out saying he's going to be releasing our oil reserves, and then everyone's pushing back saying like, hey, we don't have oil reserves. America does. We don't. And he kept on lying to the media, and well, now it's coming out. We got Mackenzie Gray pushing this out. 23.6 million barrels of oil will be released as part of IEA plan and will come from already planned production, not from emergency increase. As it says, 140,000 barrels a day starting in April. This is not releasing a reserve, a stockpile. We don't have a stockpile. So a bunch of people pointing this out. We've got Razor Oil. This guy's an oil executive here. He's like, yep, so that's where it's coming from. Got Kirk pointing this out here. A whopping 140,000 barrels per day. It will take 181 days to fulfill our promise. As he says, embarrassing. Yeah, this is embarrassing. This isn't going to save the market or really help the world all that much. This is pathetic. We don't have a reserve. Moving ahead, we got Mark Nixon posting this. Rising oil prices could push Canadian food prices even higher. Does it look like Carney cares? He could cut taxes right now. He could remove taxes off of gas right now, or the industrial carbon tax, or the food packaging tax, or the fuel standard tax. He does not care. He's gallivanting around Norway. I believe he's over in London right now, and then he's going to go to Rome for a vacation while Canadians are starving. As it says, Canada has food inflation rate of 7.3%, highest among the G7 countries. And with that, we've got people stealing food. We've got a supermarket in Quebec that displays the pictures of thieves. This is unbelievable. This should be in every supermarket.
Comment ils disent les Congolais?
Another one. Another one.
Ah ouais. Oh la dinguerie de faire ça en vrai.
It's just on a rotating cycle here, showing all the thieves in the grocery store. Unbelievable. This is great. Make this nationwide. Got Canada and Norway strengthens defense cooperation in space. Yeah, we know how this is going to turn out. Contracts going to Telesat Lightspeed. Mark Carney's buddy over there, Dan Goldberg. And with that, we've got Carney playing around, coming out of tanks in Norway. Okay, we'll get rid of that audio, but just more photo ops. Look, I'm standing by military vehicle. Shake some hands. Oh, like this is ridiculous. There's only two reasons that I can see that Carney's over there. One is to get him over there on that side of the world so then he can go for vacation in Rome and not be nailed on it. And the second as well, and what I'm about to show you here next, is Carney meeting with people. And who did he meet with? Well, we've got him meeting with a few different business leaders here in Oslo. And one of them is this guy here. I mean, Carney posted it himself, and we see that photo right here as well. Different photo, but same guy. Equinor is a major player in European energy. They're leading the way in making the Bay du Nord project off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador a reality. Good to meet with CEO Anders Opedal to talk about the massive opportunities this project will create for Canadians. So who is this guy? What is this project? Well, you know where this is going. This is a big convoluted web here. So we'll just break this down one piece at a time. So we've got the Norwegian government. They control this here, Norges Bank, Norway's sovereign wealth fund, which was built off of oil. Then we've got the Norwegian government being a majority owner of Equinor, which is the guy you saw there, the CEO, Anders Opedal. The CEO of Equinor, directly controlled by the Norwegian government. So now that we've established that, we've got two things going on here. So first off, we'll go to the right side. So we've got the Norwegian government controlling this sovereign wealth fund, Norges Bank plus BCI, which is the BC pension fund, both invested 33.3% stake into Northview Energy. This is a brand new company that was just announced on March 3rd, 2026. And who's the third player? Obviously, it's Brookfield. This is a little bit complicated, but Brookfield, basically to get their 33% stake in this, they didn't put any money down. They sold assets to this Northview Energy, and then those assets would provide ongoing revenue, stable revenue, which is how you entice these pension funds to get in on this. Now, we know Norges invested $425 million on March 3rd, 2026. BCI probably would have invested something similar, if not the exact same amount. And then Brookfield puts up assets assets that fills in the rest of this $2.6 billion renewable joint venture. Brookfield puts up assets that provides ongoing revenue. These guys put up money into this new company, and then they agreed to this $1.5 billion collective framework agreement to fund future acquisitions from Brookfield's pipeline. So this is more business for Brookfield. They get access to sovereign wealth funds, both in Norway and from British Columbia, as I've got it broken down here. So Northview Energy, this newly formed company, is a renewable energy joint venture launched on March 3rd. It operates as a massive acquisition platform designed to purchase, own, and operate 2.3 gigawatt seed portfolio of US-based wind, solar, and battery assets. As mentioned, that's split three ways. So we got Brookfield doing this deal once again March 3rd. This is important because then what do we have? We have Mark Carney going over to, as we just saw in these photos, meet with Anders Opedal. This is on March 14th, right here on his own Twitter account. Meets with Anders Opedal, March 14th, publicly discusses Equinor's Bay du Nord project. Bay du Nord is a company that's owned by Equinor. Once again, majority owner of this is the Norwegian government. Equinor owns 60% of Bay du Nord, has majority stake in this. And BP, the oil company, owns 40% stake. Bay du Nord, which is the one Carney talked to Anders Opedal about, is a massive proposed deepwater offshore oil and gas project located in the Flemish Bass Basin, about 500 kilometers east of St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. If built, it would be Canada's first deepwater oil installation. It's an estimated 14 billion Canadian dollar development that is expected to extract over 400 million barrels of oil using massive floating production, storage, and offloading FPSO vessel. We've got this right on Equinor's own website here, the Bay du Nord project. Initial investment 14 billion, estimated government revenues 20 billion, total GDP contribution 50 billion, and we can see the project itself right here off the coast of St. John's. So Carney's going over there to talk about oil only because, well, Brookfield is all wrapped up in this. Of course, that's the only deals he's going to do that involve oil.
One of the conversations I had today was with Equinor about Bay du Nord, which is a very attractive project off Newfoundland, which we look to move forward. That will provide additional, not in the short term, but in the medium term. Again, very low carbon oil in terms of production and transportation, which is one of the reasons why it's attractive. So that's what we do. That's our contribution.
Here we are, once again, low carbon oil. And who makes money from this? Well, Mark Carney does, because he has stock options in Brookfield Corporation, Brookfield Asset Management, as well as Brookfield Global Transition Fund 1 that he set up. He gets 3% carried interest off of anything with renewable power, low carbon, anything with a carbon credit that Brookfield is a world leader in, he will profit from. So another conflict of interest. We've got this other one here. Brookfield back in November 4th, 2020, bought 48.4% in Polnergia. Now, what's Polnergia? This is a Polish private energy group, and they went in 50-50 with Equinor on this here, MFW Baltic 2 and MFW Baltic 3. These are the legal names in the documents, but basically these are called Baltic 2 and Baltic 3 because this is an offshore wind project in the Baltic Sea. You can see offshore construction officially launched on February 19th, 2026. So there's a lot of Brookfield projects here, all in the same time frame. We've got March 3rd over here with Northview Energy, and then we've got the Baltic Sea projects here, February 19th, 2026. So Baltic 2 and 3, this offshore project here, is a massive 7.8 billion offshore wind energy development off the coast of Poland in the Baltic Sea with a combined capacity of 1,440 megawatts. The project will feature 100 wind turbines capable of powering 2 million homes. As we see, the equity stake between Equinor and Polnergia is 50-50. And I've got a map down here. You can see it's right off the north coast of Poland. So after seeing all this, it's quite obvious there's a direct conflict of interest here because Mark Carney is going and talking with the CEO of Equinor, who has this 50-50 deal with Polnergia, which Brookfield owns half of, as well as Northview, which is 1/3 owned by Norges Bank, the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is also a majority owner in Equinor. These are all wrapped up. This is a direct conflict of interest two ways. Carney's over here pushing for project approvals for Equinor, boosts the image of Brookfield doing business with this company. It does something else too. Not only does it signal stability of Brookfield being able to work with these companies, but also with two sovereign wealth funds. I mentioned this before, and I got some flack from it from another creator, that Carney would find a way to work with these sovereign wealth funds, especially all the Canadian pension funds. While Carney can't get in there and divvy out this money himself, he either has people in these funds that can vote for projects that will go to Brookfield. There's ways of influencing, and we're seeing it right now. Carney goes over there, tries to get this project going because, well, it helps Brookfield's image working with other sovereign wealth funds and pension funds, which attracts then more sovereign wealth funds and pension funds that Brookfield can work with, like these Canadian ones. As I stated a few months ago, this is playing out exactly as I said it would happen. Carney is using his influence and power as Prime Minister to help boost Brookfield's image here, as well as these projects. And while this project here is not directly connected to Brookfield, it's connected to this company that's in bed with Brookfield. That's a 50-50 owner of this project with Brookfield. Somehow I think this one's going to slide right past the Conflict of Interest Commissioner's desk in Canada. And while Bay de Norge is not directly in business with Brookfield, he mentioned in this video here low carbon oil and named this project. We know full well Brookfield's stranglehold on the carbon credit system here. What I think is going to happen here is Carney's going to use Bay de Norge as a benchmark for other oil companies in Canada and say, look, these guys are doing low carbon. You have to be low carbon. And we know he wants to do Pathways project, and he's going to force all of the Canadian oil companies to pay a low carbon premium. That premium will be paid to Brookfield. Mark Carney invested in Brookfield, former chair of Brookfield. This is so obvious what he's doing here. Unfortunately, nobody in the media researches this guy. Just wait for it. After this is set up, he'll bring out a carbon credit system for oil companies. This is probably a couple years down the line. It all lines up with Mark Carney's stock options in Brookfield, both asset management and corporation, as well as his Brookfield Global Transition Fund. They all mature around 2030. Carney wants about 7 years in power to roll this whole thing out. So I don't know if he would roll this system next year or if it would take him a couple years, but he's going to put all the pieces in place and then he's going to have all these dominoes fall real quickly. These credits would come from these numerous ones I've got listed here, or from the Pathways project, which Mark Carney's been pushing in his second tranche of major projects. Here we have Pathways Project Plus. This is already a direct conflict of interest because Mark Carney's invested in ExxonMobil, ConocoPhillips, and Canadian Natural Resources, three companies that are involved in this Pathways project. And on top of that, we've got this guy down here who's in charge of the Pathways project, Derek Evans. This guy served on the board of Meg Energy with none other than our energy minister, Tim Hodgson. I've got the dates right here. You can see Pathways Alliance, Derek Evans, Executive Chair, Pathways Alliance, CEO of Meg Energy when Tim Hodgson was there. So I have it linked over Meg Energy under Tim Hodgson's resume. When you map it out like this, it's so obvious what they're doing. Meanwhile, we've got clips like this, PM of Denmark, just praising Mark Carney's speech in Davos. This clip here is not going to age well once Canada starts crumbling and people realize what Carney's doing here.
Dear Mark, it's great to have you among us, the Nordic leaders. And I have to say to you that you have a lot of supporters in all countries. The speech you gave in Davos, I have never experienced anything like this. I mean, people in Denmark, and I guess the same goes for the rest of the Nordic countries, have been talking about, they have been reading your speech. And I don't think I have ever heard so many reflections on a speech from a colleague as I have heard about your speech in Davos. And it is because you show leadership. You were talking about how democracies can work together and that we have to connect even closer in this world where the old world order is gone and it will probably not come back. So we have to build something new. And it has to be a world order that is built on the values that we represent, the leaders standing in front of you today.
This is not going to age well for her. She has no idea who Carney is, or she's in on it. I don't think she is. I don't think she knows who Carney is. Give this a couple of years and she's going to look like such a fool. We also got Melissa posting this. Carney talks about the biggest threat to Canada. He mentioned this during the election. He said China. You think he's going to say China again?
Look, the biggest security threat, physical security threat in the Arctic is Russia. And there are various aspects of that. There are other layered threats in there, but first and foremost, and consistent with many of the other aspects of NATO security development.
Yeah, it's Russia. It's not China. He doesn't want to piss off his new boss, even though CSIS officials say China's more of a concern in Canada's Arctic than Russia. Moving ahead, we got the Globe and Mail with this. Canada's stuck in a vicious circle of low productivity. I wonder why that is. We're taxed out the wazoo here. Tons of people with skills are leaving Canada. The Liberals are importing people who don't have skills. And then we have the threat of AI coming and taking away a bunch of jobs. I mean, what's going to happen here? Actually, I should say the threat of the AI is already taking jobs, lots of jobs. While it's drastically improving productivity for some, I don't think this is going to go over too well. Meanwhile, we got Pierre Poilievre, who's doing his tour down in America, came out with this. Poilievre makes dollar for dollar tariff policy pitch to U.S. automakers. Says under the CPC plan, automaker that assembles vehicles in Canada would be allowed to import the equivalent dollar value in cars or trucks from the U.S. or Mexico without paying duties. This is just like his dollar for dollar plan for cutting the government spending. This is brilliant. This is a great idea. Got a little breakdown here that Pierre posted. A renewed tariff-free auto pact will boost car production, lower prices, and protect jobs on both sides of the border. Conservatives will fight for the auto sector. And a little breakdown here, double production makes buy Canadian affordable, protects and harmonizes supply chains, and strengthens national security. Unless this is going to help boost Mark Carney in the polls, Carney won't touch this. And I should note too, just talking with people, I think one of the reasons that Carney is recently boosted in the polls is because a lot of Canadians, a majority of Canadians, don't like Donald Trump attacking Iran, mostly because Canadians have no idea the situation, why Iran is so bad, why they're so evil, how dangerous they are. They have no idea, and Canadians are pro-peace. So any form of attacking another country immediately loses you percentage points in the polls. And since the Conservatives came out in support of essentially getting rid of the nasty dictator over there that was about to have nuclear bombs, I think that hurt him in the polls, sadly, because just most Canadians don't know what's going on over there.
Mark Carney wants to subsidize the purchase of foreign cars with Canadian taxpayer dollars. We want to cut taxes on buying Canadian cars. We want to bring home production through performance by implementing a rule for every car produced in Canada, the same manufacturer would get to sell a car in Canada duty-free from a CUSMA partner on a dollar-for-dollar basis, similar to the 1965 Canada-US Auto Pact. Simply put, every time an automaker makes a car in Canada, they would have the right to sell a duty-free car in Canada. This would create a powerful incentive for them to relocate and repatriate production back to this country. Because right now, we buy almost twice as many cars as we make. But automakers who want to sell in our market would have to make in our market in order to do it. The same would apply for the other countries in the USMCA. We protect the North American supply chain by maintaining the minimum 75% North American content and existing CUSMA rules of origin. We would develop automotive security and technology by creating a harmonized North American cybersecurity and data standard while banning vehicles from using software connected to China and Russia. We would stand firm on unfair trade practices with our North American partners against China for maximum leverage in the CUSMA negotiations, and we will get rid of the entire EV mandate. Believe it or not, Mark Carney has announced he would do that. He still actually hasn't removed it from the books, and he's promised an emission standard that can only be met by EVs. In other words, even hybrids do not qualify for his emission standards. The effect of this would be to shut down production of internal combustion engine in our country, and it would ensure rural communities would not be able to buy vehicles that actually work for them. Conservatives will get rid of the entire EV mandate for real so that we can compete and our people can choose what kind of cars they want to buy.
And with that, we've got the Globe and Mail coming out with this opinion. Poilievre arrives late to auto debate with a plan from 1965. Well, what is this garbage? Since when is it Globe and Mail's job to criticize the opposition? Not to mention, I don't see any articles criticizing the Bloc or the NDP or the Greens or anyone else. There's a criticism of Mark Carney. Look, there's a full article talking about a plan from 1965. Where's Carney's plan? He's got none. He's on vacation.